A quiet birth beneath the stars, a silent night in Thebes. Night arrived in Thebes without any urgency. It did not rush in or announce itself. It simply settled, slowly and patiently, over rooftops and stone streets, as it had done countless times before. The city rested beneath a sky filled with distant stars. They were steady and pale, scattered softly across the darkness. They did not shimmer dramatically or draw attention to themselves. They simply existed, watching quietly from far away. Most homes were dark. Doors were closed. Lamps had been extinguished one by one as families surrendered to sleep. In the narrow streets, there were no footsteps. Only the faint sound of wind brushing against stone walls and wooden doors. A stray animal shifted somewhere in the distance, then became still again. Time moved gently, unhurried. On the edge of the city, away from the louder homes and busy gathering places, stood a modest house. Its walls were plain. Its roof was low. Inside, a single oil lamp burned, its flame steady but small. The room was quiet. A woman lay resting, her breathing slow and careful. The air around her was warm, filled with the soft scent of oil and stone. She did not speak. She did not cry out. She simply waited. This was Alcmene. And this was the night her child would enter the world. There was no sign in the heavens. No thunder. No sudden light breaking through the clouds. The gods did not gather. They did not whisper among themselves. Zeus observed from a great distance, silent and still. He did not interfere. He did not descend. And Hera, too, remained quiet. Her attention was elsewhere. Her thoughts were distant. No anger stirred the air. No jealousy disturbed the calm of the night. Inside the house, time continued to pass. The oil lamp flickered slightly, then steadied again. Shadows moved slowly across the walls, stretching and shrinking with the flame. Outside, the city slept. Somewhere beyond the walls of Thebes, fields lay dark and unmoving. Trees stood without sound. The earth itself seemed to rest. Eventually, the waiting ended. Not with cries that echoed through the streets. Not with noise that drew attention. The child was born quietly. His first breath was soft, barely audible. He did not struggle. He did not shout. He simply entered the world and rested. Alcmene held him close, wrapping him carefully, her movement slow and gentle. She looked down at him for a long time without speaking. His face was calm. His eyes remained closed. His small chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. There was nothing remarkable to see. No glow. No sign of strength. Only a newborn, resting peacefully in the stillness of the night. Outside, nothing changed. The moon continued its slow path across the sky. Clouds drifted lazily, thinning and gathering again without purpose. The city did not awaken. No one sensed what had happened. The world did not pause for this moment. And yet, beneath the quiet, something had begun. Not loudly, not forcefully, simply and slowly. Strength does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it enters the world the way sleep does, softly, gently, without asking for attention. The night deepened. The oil lamp burned lower, its flame smaller now, but still steady. The shadows softened. Alcmene adjusted her hold and rested back against the cushions. The child remained asleep, Outside, the wind sighed once against the stone walls, then moved on. Thebes remained unaware. And so, under an ordinary sky, in an unremarkable house, on a night that would soon be forgotten by everyone who lived through it, Hercules was born. Not as a hero, not as a legend, but as a quiet beginning. The child born without celebration, the hours after the birth passed slowly, almost without shape. Time did not feel divided into minutes or moments. It simply drifted, like a gentle current, carrying the quiet house forward toward morning. Inside the room, the oil lamp continued to burn. Its flame was smaller now, softer, casting a warm circle of light that did not reach the corners of the walls. Those corners remained dim and still, holding their shadows without movement. Alcmene remained awake, though her body rested. She did not rush. She did not move with urgency. She held the child close to her chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. In and out. Slow and even. The newborn did not cry. He did not stir much at all. He seemed content to sleep, as though the world he had entered required no immediate response. From time to time, Alcmene adjusted the cloth around him, careful not to wake him. Her movements were practiced and gentle. She had no reason to hurry. There was no one waiting outside the door. No voices whispering in the hall. No visitors asking questions or offering blessings. The house remained silent. Outside, the city of Thebes slept on, unaware. Stone buildings stood quietly beneath the fading night sky. Shutters remained closed. Doors stayed locked. A breeze passed through the empty streets, stirring dust and leaves, then moved on without leaving a trace. No announcement was made. No horn sounded. No bell rang. This birth was not meant for spectacle. High above, the stars continued their slow journey. They had watched empires rise and fall. They had seen kings born in luxury and children born in hardship. This child did not draw their attention. Even among the gods, there was no gathering. Zeus remained distant, observing without expression. He did not lean forward. He did not intervene. And Hera did nothing at all. There was no sudden anger. No sharp reaction. Only silence. Not every story begins with conflict. Some begin with absence. As the night wore on, the child shifted slightly. His small hand moved, fingers opening and closing once before relaxing again. His face tightened for a brief moment, then smoothed back into calm. Alcmene watched closely, then relaxed when she saw he remained asleep. She studied him in the dim light. His features were ordinary. There was nothing about him that suggested what lay ahead. No sign of strength. No sign of endurance. Just softness. Warmth. Life. She rested her head back and allowed her own breathing to slow, matching his rhythm without thinking about it. In that shared stillness, the room felt suspended, as though time itself had decided to rest for a while. Outside, somewhere far beyond the city walls, an animal called once into the darkness. The sound was distant and low, fading quickly. Then there was nothing again. No one marked this moment. No record was made. No song was written. In other houses across Thebes, other children slept. Other lamps burned low. Other families dreamed ordinary dreams. Morning would come soon enough. With it, voices, movement, routine. But for now, the world remained untouched by meaning. The child slept on, unaware of names, unaware of gods, unaware of destiny. He did not know he was different. He did not know he would be tested. He did not know his life would stretch long and heavy with effort. For now, he only rested. The lamp flickered once more, then steadied. Its flame leaned slightly, responding to a subtle shift in the air. Alcmene closed her eyes for a moment, though she did not sleep deeply. She remained present, anchored by the warmth in her arms. This was not a moment of celebration. It did not need to be. Some lives begin quietly, without witnesses. They grow slowly, shaped by time rather than attention. And so, without ceremony, without noise, without the world noticing, the child who would one day be called Hercules continued to sleep. The night held him gently. The city remained unaware. And the story moved forward, quietly, into its long and patient unfolding. Strength resting quietly within, as the night moved closer to morning, the darkness began to soften. It did not disappear all at once. It slowly thinned, becoming lighter at the edges, as though the world were breathing itself awake. Inside the quiet house, nothing changed quickly. The oil lamp still burned, though its flame was now very small, barely more than a steady glow. Its light rested softly on the walls, no longer casting strong shadows, only gentle shapes that barely moved. The child slept. His breathing remained slow and even, like a calm tide moving in and out. Each breath followed the last without effort, without interruption. Alcmene remained still, careful not to disturb him. Her arms had grown slightly tired, but she did not shift. She accepted the weight, adjusting herself little by little, finding a position where both she and the child could rest. Outside the room, the house was silent. Wooden beams creaked faintly as they cooled in the night air. Stone held the memory of the day's warmth and released it slowly. Somewhere nearby, water dripped once, then again, from a clay vessel that had not been sealed properly. The sound was soft and rhythmic, almost comforting. Inside the child, something waited. It did not press outward. It did not demand expression. It simply existed. Strength, when it is real, does not always reveal itself early. It does not rush forward or seek recognition. Often it waits, quietly, patiently, until the moment it is needed. The child's hands rested open now, no longer curled into fists. His fingers were relaxed, his arms heavy with sleep. There was no tension in him. No one watching him would have guessed the long road ahead. No one would have imagined the weight he would one day carry. The night did not know. The house did not know. Even the gods, distant and silent, did not interfere. Zeus watched without movement, as though he understood that this beginning required no guidance. Some things must unfold on their own. And Hera remained distant still, not watching, not reacting. Her silence lingered like a closed door, present, but untouched. The sky outside continued its slow change. Stars faded one by one, retreating into the growing light. The moon slipped lower, pale and tired, preparing to disappear. Morning approached without urgency. In the streets of Thebes, the first signs of waking began. A door opened quietly somewhere. Far away. Footsteps passed briefly, then faded. A voice murmured, low and indistinct. Life returned gradually, layer by layer. Inside the house, the child stirred slightly. Not awake, just shifting, adjusting to warmth and comfort. His brow tightened for a moment, then smoothed again. He sighed softly and continued sleeping. Alcmene watched him closely, then allowed herself to relax a little more. She had been awake for many hours now, suspended between exhaustion and awareness. Slowly, carefully, she leaned back and let her own eyes close. She did not sleep deeply. She drifted. In that drifting state, time lost its edges. Moments blended together. The quiet stretched. The child remained asleep. Strength rested within him, untouched by thought or intention. It did not know what it was. It had no name. It was simply there. Outside, the first light of dawn reached the rooftops of Thebes. Stone caught the pale glow and reflected it softly. The city began another ordinary day. People would wake. They would work. They would speak of small things. No one would speak of this house. No one would mention this child. And yet, beneath the ordinary surface of the world, a life had begun its long journey. Not with force, not with sound, but with rest. The night finally released its hold, retreating fully as the sun rose higher. The oil lamp flickered one last time, then went out. Daylight filled the room, gentle and pale. The child slept on, undisturbed. And so ended the first quiet hours of Hercules' life, hours marked not by destiny or struggle, but by stillness, warmth, and the patient beginning of strength. Hera's silent distance, the still presence of the gods. Morning settled fully over Thebes, bringing light without disturbance. The sun rose gently, touching rooftops and stone walls with a pale warmth. Shadows shortened. Birds stirred softly in hidden places. Life resumed its ordinary rhythm. People stepped outside their homes. Doors opened and closed. Quiet voices greeted the day. Nothing in the city suggested that anything unusual had occurred during the night. No one looked toward the small house on the edge of the streets. No one paused to wonder. The world continued, unchanged. Far above, beyond the sky and the drifting clouds, the gods remained where they had always been. They watched the world from a great distance, removed from the slow routines of human life. On Olympus, there was no gathering, no council, no raised voices. The halls were calm. Light rested on marble floors. Columns stood in perfect stillness. A soft breeze moved through open spaces, carrying no message, no urgency. The gods were present, but quiet. Zeus sat alone, his posture relaxed, his gaze unfocused. He did not speak. He did not move. He was aware of the child's birth, but awareness did not demand action. Some moments required intervention. Others required patience. This one required nothing at all. Time passed differently here. Minutes held no meaning. Hours stretched without weight. Across the vast space of Olympus, Hera remained apart. She did not approach. She did not look toward the mortal world. Her distance was not loud. It did not announce itself with anger or fury. It was simply there. Silence can be more powerful than words. Absence can carry more meaning than presence. Hera's stillness was deliberate. She did not confront. She did not accuse. She waited. Waiting, after all, requires strength of its own. Below, in the mortal world, the child slept on, unaware of divine attention, unaware of divine distance. Alcmene moved carefully through her house, adjusting to the day. She kept her voice low. She let the child rest. There was no sense of danger, no feeling of unease, only routine. Outside, neighbors passed by without stopping. They carried baskets. They spoke of weather and work. The birth remained unnoticed. And that was how Hera allowed it to remain. Her silence did not reach down as punishment. It did not twist events or alter fate. It hovered, untouched. On Olympus, Hera stood near an open space that overlooked the sky. Clouds drifted slowly below her. The earth lay far away, softened by distance. She did not narrow her eyes. She did not tense her hands. She simply observed nothing at all. Sometimes, restraint is chosen not out of kindness, but out of control. The gods understood this. Zeus did not challenge her silence. He did not approach. There are moments even gods allow to pass without interference. The air on Olympus remained calm. The light remained steady. No thunder gathered. No wind rose. The divine world reflected the mortal one, quiet, unhurried, patient. Below, hours passed. The sun climbed higher. Warmth spread across stone and earth. The child woke briefly, stirred, then slept again. His life moved forward in small, unremarkable steps. Hera did not look down. Not yet. Her silence was not an end. It was a pause. And pauses, when stretched long enough, become part of the story themselves. The gods remained present but distant, watching without touching, knowing without acting. The world continued beneath them, steady and indifferent. And in that calm separation, between gods and mortals, between attention and neglect, the path ahead quietly formed, unseen and unspoken. Hera's watchful patience, time passed, not in moments, but in stretches of stillness. On Olympus, nothing demanded attention. Nothing pressed forward. The air remained clear and calm, resting lightly against marble halls and wide open spaces. Light moved slowly across the stone floors as the sun followed its quiet path through the sky. Hera remained where she was. She did not pace. She did not turn restlessly from one thought to another. She stood in stillness, her posture composed, her presence steady. Patience is often misunderstood. It is not the absence of feeling. It is the choice to remain unmoved. Hera's patience was deliberate. She knew of the child. Of course she did. Nothing connected to Zeus escaped her awareness. But awareness did not require response. She did not act in the heat of emotion. She did not allow reaction to shape the moment. Instead, she waited. Waiting allows time to soften sharp edges. It allows events to reveal themselves without force. Below, the mortal world moved slowly through another ordinary day. In Thebes, the sun climbed higher. Shadows shortened. Stone walls warmed. Alcmene went about her tasks carefully, adjusting to her new routine. She moved quietly through the house, mindful of the sleeping child. The baby woke only briefly. He fed, then returned to rest without resistance. His cries were soft and short, fading quickly back into silence. Nothing about him demanded attention. The hours passed gently. On Olympus, Hera remained distant from Zeus. Not in conflict, not in confrontation, simply apart. Distance, when chosen, can be a form of control. It allows space for observation without engagement. Zeus sensed her silence, but he did not challenge it. He understood its meaning. Some matters were not settled through argument. They unfolded through time. The gods around them felt the calm, even if they did not name it. No one spoke of the child. No one raised questions. The divine realm rested in a state of quiet balance. Hera's gaze drifted occasionally toward the open sky, though she did not focus on any single point. Her thoughts moved slowly, without urgency. She did not plan. She did not plot. She allowed the future to remain unwritten. Below, afternoon softened into evening. The light grew warmer, then dimmer. Thebes prepared once again for night. People returned home. Doors closed. Lamps were lit. The child slept through most of it. When he stirred, it was without distress. When he slept, it was deep and calm. Strength continued to rest within him, untouched by awareness. Hera did not reach for that strength. She did not test it. She did not disturb it. Her patience stretched on. Even patience grows tired, given enough time, but not yet. The night returned to Thebes as gently as it had left. Stars reappeared, one by one, settling into familiar patterns. Inside the modest house, the oil lamp burned once more. Its glow filled the room with soft light. Alcmene rested. The child slept. The gods remained silent. Hera remained distant. Silence, when held long enough, becomes expectation. Expectation becomes tension, quiet, but present. And yet, nothing broke. No sign descended from the sky. No dream visited the house. No omen passed through the city. The world remained balanced on stillness. Hera's patience continued, not as mercy, not as forgiveness, but as restraint. Restraint shaped the space around her. It shaped the time yet to come. For now, she allowed the child to remain untouched by her attention. She allowed life to move forward unchallenged. And in that long, quiet patience, the story deepened, not through action, but through waiting. Time passing without conflict, time continued to move, though nothing seemed to change. Days followed nights, and nights followed days, each one resembling the last. There were no sudden turns, no sharp moments, only repetition, gentle and steady. In Thebes, life settled into routine. The child grew slowly, almost unnoticed by the world beyond his home. He slept often. When he woke, it was without urgency. His breathing remained calm. His movements were small and uncoordinated, as all newborn movements are. Alcmene adjusted to motherhood quietly. She learned the rhythm of his needs, the soft timing of feeding and rest. She spoke little. She listened more. The house remained peaceful. Outside, neighbors passed by without stopping. No one paused to look inside. No one asked questions. The city did not mark the passing of these days. Above, Olympus remained still. The gods moved through their spaces without conversation about the mortal world below. Their attention drifted elsewhere, toward distant matters, forgotten disputes, or simply rest. Zeus maintained his distance. He did not descend. He did not interfere. He understood that intervention, too early or too often, can disrupt what must develop on its own. And Hera remained silent still. Her patience did not break. Her restraint did not falter. She did not watch closely. She did not follow each moment. She allowed time to do its work. Time, when left undisturbed, shapes lives more effectively than force. Below, weeks passed. The child opened his eyes more often now, observing without understanding. Light caught his attention. Shadows moved slowly across the walls, and he watched them without thought. He did not cry often. When he did, it was brief. Sleep always returned quickly. Strength continued to rest quietly within him, growing not through effort, but through time. No god tested it. No sign revealed it. It waited. Hera's silence allowed this waiting to continue. Silence can be a shield as much as it can be a distance. In her restraint, she unknowingly protected what she chose not to touch. The seasons shifted gradually. The air warmed. The days lengthened. The night softened. In Thebes, people marked time by harvests and festivals, unaware of the quiet story unfolding alongside their own. The child's presence did not alter the city's rhythm. He remained just another life among many. On Olympus, the balance remained intact. No argument rose. No challenge was made. The gods accepted the stillness. Even the possibility of conflict seemed distant, as though it belonged to another time altogether. Hera stood firm in her distance. Not angry. Not forgiving. Simply waiting. Waiting is neither action nor surrender. It is a choice to let the future arrive on its own terms. Below, the child slept beneath the slow turning of the sky. His life moved forward gently, untouched by divine conflict. And so, in the absence of struggle, time passed. The story deepened quietly, without sound, without force. A path formed, not through confrontation, but through patience. And in that long, uneventful passing of days, the foundation of Hercules' life was laid, not by gods, not by fate, but by silence and time working together. Childhood of strength and solitude, growing carefully, slowly the years did not announce themselves as they passed. They moved quietly, one after another, blending together without sharp edges or clear boundaries. The child grew, not quickly, not in a way that drew attention. He grew the way trees grow, slowly, steadily, almost invisibly from one day to the next. In the small house on the edge of Thebes, life followed a simple rhythm. Morning light entered through narrow openings. Evening softened into shadow. Nights returned with familiar calm. The boy spent much of his early life in silence. He watched more than he spoke. He listened to sounds without naming them, the scrape of sandals on stone, the soft clatter of clay vessels, the distant hum of the city moving through its days. He learned the weight of quiet. Alcmene guided him gently, never pushing, never demanding. She allowed him to move at his own pace, to discover the world without pressure. When he walked, it was carefully. When he touched things, it was with curiosity rather than force. Even then, there was a sense of restraint in him, a natural caution, as though some part of him already understood that his body held more strength than it yet revealed. Other children played loudly in the streets. They ran, shouted, stumbled. He did not join them often, not because he was unwelcome, not because he was afraid. He simply preferred the edges of things. He sat in the shade while others ran in the sun. He watched dust rise and settle. He traced patterns in the ground with slow movements of his fingers. The world felt large to him, not threatening, just wide and deep. Strength remained quiet inside him, still unnamed, still untested. Alcmene noticed small things. A door that closed more firmly than expected. A jug lifted with ease, though it appeared heavy. A stone moved aside without effort. She did not speak of these moments. She did not draw attention to them. She simply guided him gently, teaching him to move slowly, to be aware of his body, to be careful. Carefulness became habit. Days passed into seasons. The boy grew taller. His movements became steadier. His presence became solid, though still calm. People in Thebes began to notice him, not because of noise, but because of stillness. Some children demand attention by being loud, others by being disruptive. He did neither. He was present without effort. When he spoke, his voice was low. When he laughed, it was brief and soft. He did not seek to lead. He did not seek to follow. He remained apart, comfortable in his own quiet space. Strength continued to rest beneath the surface, like deep water beneath smooth stone. Above, the gods remained distant. Hera did not intervene. Zeus did not guide. They allowed time to continue shaping the boy without interference. Time, after all, is the most patient teacher. The boy learned the feel of the earth beneath his feet, the weight of air before a storm, the silence that comes just before evening settles. He learned to wait. Waiting teaches restraint. Restraint teaches control. No one spoke to him of destiny. No one mentioned gods. His life, for now, belonged only to the slow turning of days. As he grew, solitude became familiar, not lonely, but grounding. In quiet moments, he sat alone, watching the sky change color. He listened to the wind move through trees beyond the city walls. He felt connected to things that did not speak. Strength remained patient. It did not push outward. It did not demand expression. It rested, growing alongside the boy, shaped by calm rather than conflict. The child who would one day be called Hercules continued to grow, not as a hero, not as a legend, but as a quiet presence moving slowly through the early years of life. And in that careful, unremarkable growth, the foundation of endurance was laid, stone by stone, day by day, without noise, without force. Learning restraint, as the boy grew older, his days settled into patterns that rarely changed. Morning followed night. Night followed morning. The repetition brought comfort. He learned the weight of routine, the way small actions, repeated often, shaped the body and the mind. Each day felt familiar, and familiarity brought ease. Alcmene guided him quietly. She did not speak in long lessons or strict commands. She showed him through example. She moved slowly. She handled objects with care. She paused before acting. The boy watched and learned. When he lifted things, she encouraged him to do so gently. When he walked, she reminded him to be aware of his steps. When he played, she guided him away from roughness. At first, he did not understand why. He only knew that his movement sometimes caused more change than he expected. A cup cracked in his hand when he held it too tightly. A wooden door groaned loudly when he pushed it open without care. These moments did not frighten him. They surprised him. Alcmene responded with calm, not fear. She did not scold. She did not raise her voice. She simply placed her hand over his and guided it, showing him how to loosen his grip, how to slow his motion. Slow became safe. Safe became habit. Over time, he learned to measure himself. He learned that strength does not need to announce itself. That power, when uncontrolled, can disrupt even the quietest spaces. He began to move with intention. Each action became deliberate. Each step considered. This awareness did not make him cautious in a fearful way. It made him calm. Other children still ran and shouted in the streets of Thebes. They raced each other. They threw stones. They argued and laughed loudly. The boy watched from a distance. Sometimes he joined them, but only briefly. When play became loud or careless, he stepped back without resentment. He preferred balance. He spent more time alone as he grew, not because he was pushed away, but because solitude felt natural. In solitude, he could move without comparison, without expectation. He could sit beneath a tree and feel the rough bark against his back. He could watch insects move slowly across the ground. These moments taught him patience. Patience, in turn, softened strength. Seasons changed quietly. The boy's body grew stronger, broader. His hands became larger. His steps more grounded. Yet his movements remained slow. People began to notice, not in admiration, not in fear, just in passing. They would glance twice when he lifted something heavy without effort. They would pause when they saw him calm a restless animal with a gentle touch. No one spoke openly of it. In Thebes, unusual things were often left unmentioned. Above, the gods remained still. Hera's silence continued. Zeus watched without interference. Their distance allowed the boy to grow without pressure. Restraint became his defining lesson. Not the restraint forced by rules, but the restraint chosen through understanding. He learned when to act and when to wait, when to move and when to remain still. This balance shaped him more deeply than any challenge could have. At night, he slept deeply. His dreams were quiet, filled with familiar images, fields, trees, open sky. No visions disturbed his rest. No messages reached him. Strength remained quiet inside him, no longer just resting, but learning. Learning how to stay contained. Learning how to remain patient. And so, through gentle days and unremarkable seasons, the boy continued to grow, not toward conflict, but toward control. Control that would one day matter far more than raw power. Long days of quiet isolation. As the boy grew, solitude became a familiar companion. It was not chosen out of sadness or distance from others. It arrived naturally, shaped by his quiet nature and steady way of moving through the world. He spent long hours alone. not hidden, not withdrawn, simply apart. In the early mornings, before the city fully woke, he walked beyond the edge of Thebes. The air was cool then, untouched by the warmth of the day. The ground still held the night's softness. He moved slowly, aware of each step. He listened to the world waking, birds calling once, then falling silent again, leaves stirring faintly in the breeze. These moments belonged only to him. He did not hurry. Time felt different when he was alone. It stretched. It slowed. An hour could pass without notice. He sat on stones warmed by the rising sun. He watched light creep across fields and hills. He followed the movement of shadows as they shortened, then disappeared. The quiet gave him space to think, though his thoughts were simple. He did not imagine greatness. He did not dream of power. He thought of small things, of balance, of stillness. In solitude, he learned to listen to his body. He noticed how strength gathered without effort, how his muscles responded easily, even when he asked little of them. He learned where to stop. Stopping, he discovered, was as important as moving. In the city, life continued without him. Children grew louder. Voices filled the streets. The noise of daily labor echoed between stone walls. He returned home when the day demanded it, but he carried the quiet with him. Alcmene understood his need for space. She did not question his absence. She did not pull him back into the noise of the city. She allowed him to be as he was. Their conversations were few but gentle. Words were exchanged slowly, without urgency. She sensed that solitude was shaping him in ways she did not fully understand, but she trusted the calm it brought. Above, the gods remained distant still. Hera's silence continued, unbroken. Zeus did not intrude. They watched time unfold without altering its course. Years passed. The boy grew into a young man. His frame broadened. His presence became solid, grounded. People noticed him more now, not because he spoke, but because he stood out through stillness. When he entered a space, the noise often softened, not because others feared him, but because his calm carried weight. He did not assert himself. He did not dominate. He simply existed. Isolation remained his refuge. He walked alone beyond the city walls, farther now, exploring hills and quiet paths. He learned the land by feel rather than by name. He learned where the ground was firm, where the earth softened after rain, where the wind gathered. These journeys required no destination. They were about presence. In the quiet, strength settled deeper within him, layered with patience and control. It no longer felt separate from him. It felt integrated. Yet it remained untested. No challenge arrived. No conflict disturbed his path. The world allowed him to remain as he was. And in that allowance, something steady formed, a calm center, unshaken by noise or expectation. The long days of quiet isolation did not weaken him. They strengthened him in a way that force never could. They prepared him, not for battle, but for endurance, for listening, for waiting, for the long road that would one day open before him. Chiron and the long lesson, arrival at the mountain. The boy had grown taller now, though his movements remained deliberate and careful. He carried himself with quiet attention, aware of each step he took. He had learned much in Thebes, restraint, patience, the weight of solitude, but the world still held lessons he had yet to encounter. One day, guided by a sense that he could not explain, he began walking beyond the familiar paths, beyond the city walls, beyond the hills that framed the edges of his home. The air changed as he climbed higher. It was cooler, thinner, and softer, carrying a scent of pine and stone. Each breath filled him slowly, deep and unhurried. The mountain rose steadily before him, not steep enough to strain, but high enough to feel distant from the city below. Its slopes were quiet, broken only by the occasional sound of leaves shifting or a distant bird calling once, then falling silent again. He walked along the path without rushing. The stones beneath his feet were firm but uneven. He adjusted his steps carefully, aware of balance, aware of motion. Even small missteps seemed significant here, in this quiet place. Time passed slowly as he moved upward. The sun drifted across the sky, illuminating different parts of the mountain in soft waves of light. Shadows grew longer and then shorter, unhurried, as though the mountain itself breathed in a gentle rhythm. At the top of a gentle incline, he noticed a figure waiting. Not hidden, but still. Not urgent, but attentive. It was Chiron, the centaur, known among those who whispered of him as a teacher of many skills, wisdom, medicine, archery, and patience. Yet even the name brought no haste, no excitement to the boy's heart. He simply observed. Chiron's presence was calm, not imposing. His eyes watched the boy without judgment or expectation. He did not speak immediately. He allowed the boy to arrive, to notice him, to adjust to the quiet of the place. The boy approached slowly, each step measured, each breath steady. He did not run. He did not announce himself. Chiron nodded once, a small acknowledgement of arrival. No words were exchanged. Silence dominated the space between them, not awkward, not tense, simply present. The mountain itself seemed to approve. The wind whispered softly through the pines. Birds moved from branch to branch, settling without hurry. Rocks lay undisturbed, holding the memory of centuries. Chiron finally spoke, his voice low and gentle, blending with the mountain air. Not a command, not a call to action. Just an introduction, simple and calm. "You have arrived," he said. No urgency, no drama. The boy nodded, not fully understanding what this place was, but feeling its weight. He knew that learning would be slow here. Much slower than in the city. Much quieter. Much deeper. They began walking along a narrow path that wound around the mountain slope. Chiron did not rush. He did not speak more than necessary. The boy followed, listening to the sound of wind, the soft crunch of stones underfoot, the distant murmur of the valley below. This was the beginning of a new rhythm, a rhythm of long lessons, of patience, of quiet repetition. The boy had arrived at a place where strength would be tempered not by effort alone, but by awareness, by care, and by stillness. The sun drifted toward the horizon. Its light softened. The air cooled further. Evening approached slowly, not suddenly. The boy felt no urgency, no rush. He simply followed, step by careful step. The mountain held him gently. Chiron held him gently. And within the quiet, the boy felt the first stirrings of understanding, not of skill, not of fame, but of control. Strength, he realized, could be patient. It could wait. It could learn. And so, in the soft light of the mountain, the boy began his first lesson, not with words, not with tests, not with challenge, but with presence, observation, and calm awareness. Repetition, discipline, and calm teaching, the days on the mountain moved with a rhythm unlike anything the boy had known in Thebes. There were no noisy markets, no shouting children, no rushing feet along stone streets. Only the soft, patient rhythm of the wind through the trees, the slow passage of clouds across the sky, and the quiet presence of Chiron. Each morning, they began slowly. The sun rose over distant peaks, spilling pale light across the slopes. Shadows shifted gradually, revealing new angles of the rocks and trees, as if teaching the boy to notice small changes in the world around him. Chiron did not speak much. He demonstrated rather than instructed. He moved with deliberate care. He acted slowly, with purpose in every gesture, yet never hurried, never rushed. The boy watched, absorbing each movement as though it were a story told in silence. He learned how to lift, to place, to carry, how to use strength without breaking the quiet of the mountain. Each motion was repeated many times, not to exhaust him, but to allow the body and mind to understand. Sometimes, they practiced the bow. The boy held it awkwardly at first. His fingers strained. His arms shook slightly. Chiron corrected him without words. He repositioned the bow gently, adjusted his stance with light hands, and then stepped back. The boy tried again, over and over. No scolding, no pressure, only calm repetition. With each attempt, his movements grew steadier. He began to notice the subtle balance between tension and release, between patience and action. Each pull of the string became smoother, more controlled. Other exercises followed. They ran across slopes slowly, paying attention to every step. They lifted stones, not to display power, but to feel the weight and learn how to manage it carefully. They climbed small ridges, practicing balance and endurance, always in silence, always slowly. At first, the boy grew impatient with the repetition. It seemed endless, and he wished to move faster, to reach the end of the path, to see results quickly. But Chiron never rushed. He allowed time to stretch, allowed the lessons to sink in at their own pace. And slowly, very slowly, the boy began to understand. Discipline was not a burden. It was a quiet companion. It did not demand attention, it only guided, like the wind shaping the stones over centuries. The mountain itself seemed to participate in this. Calm teaching. Rocks shifted subtly underfoot. Leaves rustled with the wind. A distant bird called, then was still. All around, the world moved in a measured way, teaching patience by example. Chiron introduced small tasks, repeated day after day. Each one was simple, yet profound. The boy carried water in jars, not to prove strength, but to feel balance. He practiced drawing herbs from the mountainside, not for haste, but for observation and care. He learned how to care for animals, moving slowly so as not to startle them, respecting their pace and presence. Every evening, they sat quietly. The sun dipped behind distant peaks. Shadows lengthened. The boy learned to notice the subtle shifts of light, the soft sounds of approaching night. Lessons were not measured in hours or days. They were measured in understanding, in awareness, in stillness. No one praised him. No one scolded him. There was only the quiet, persistent repetition of careful action. Strength, he began to feel, was not in sudden bursts or loud displays. It was in the patience to try again, to repeat, to observe, to move carefully, deliberately, without haste. The boy grew slowly on the mountain. Each day added depth to his endurance. Each repetition strengthened not just his body, but his mind. And in the soft, steady rhythm of these mountain days, he discovered something profound, the power to remain calm, even when challenged. The ability to act with thought. The quiet certainty that patience can carry one farther than force ever could. Time passed gently. The mountain embraced him. Chiron guided him with care. And the boy learned not just to move, but to grow within the stillness. Years passing like soft wind, time on the mountain stretched like the long shadows of the afternoon sun. Days blended into one another, soft and unhurried, as if the mountain itself moved in a slow, eternal rhythm. Nothing here demanded speed. Nothing pressed the boy to hurry. He simply walked, learned, and grew. Each morning arrived with gentle light. The sun spilled gold across pine needles and stone, highlighting details the eye might otherwise miss. The boy noticed the subtle changes, the curve of a branch, the shift of moss across rocks, the soft movement of insects along the soil. Every small observation became part of the quiet lesson. Chiron remained beside him, patient and calm. He rarely raised his voice, and when he spoke, it was always measured and deliberate. Words were few. Actions were many. Every gesture carried meaning, yet demanded nothing in return. The boy learned not through force, but through careful observation. They practiced long stretches of walking, climbing, lifting, and observing. Sometimes, the boy moved stones along a path, learning the feel of weight in his hands. Sometimes, he drew water from the mountain stream, learning balance in the process. Sometimes, he simply sat, watching clouds drift across peaks, listening to the wind stir in distant trees. Each repetition taught him restraint. Each slow motion taught him control. Strength was no longer something raw and urgent inside him. It became something patient, deep, and mindful. The seasons passed quietly. Spring brought the first tender greens to the slopes. Summer carried warmth and light. Autumn painted the trees with soft golds and reds. Winter softened the mountains in snow, muffling sound and smoothing the land with white silence. Through it all, the boy remained present. He adjusted to each season, moved carefully on ice and wet earth, noticed the subtleties of changing air and light. He became intimately familiar with the mountain, its sounds, its textures, its quiet rhythms. The solitude was never lonely. The boy carried within him a calm awareness that filled the spaces around him. Even silence felt companionable. Even stillness felt alive. Chiron's presence never forced itself upon him. He guided when necessary, demonstrated when required, but never rushed. The lessons were subtle, small, daily moments that added together over months and years. Each day a soft stone laid on the foundation of patience. Strength continued to grow quietly, slowly, beneath the surface. It did not announce itself. It did not demand recognition. It simply settled deeper, coiling like a quiet river under calm skies. The boy learned to move through the world without disturbance. He learned to respect balance, not just of his body, but of his surroundings. He learned to act only when necessary, and to wait without restlessness. In these long days of gentle repetition, endurance became second nature. And so the years passed. The boy became a young man in stature, though never hurriedly, always measured, always deliberate. He did not notice the passage of time in days or months, only in the growth of his own awareness and skill. Above, the gods watched with distant patience. Hera remained silent. Zeus remained still. No interference came. No urgency descended. The mountain taught, the wind whispered, and the boy absorbed it all with quiet attention. At last, he understood something important, though he did not speak it aloud. True strength does not shout. True endurance does not demand attention. Power, when honed through patience and calm, is steady, quiet, and unshakable. The mountain slopes, the soft trees, the distant streams, all became part of him. They shaped him slowly, over years that felt like gentle breaths. And in this long, patient shaping, the boy who would one day be called Hercules prepared, without haste, without spectacle, for the life that would eventually demand everything he had learned. First trials beyond the mountain, stepping into the wider world, the boy, now taller and steadier, left the mountain slowly. He did not rush. Each step down the slope was deliberate, careful, as if the land itself reminded him to move with awareness. The air grew warmer as he descended, carrying scents of earth, flowers, and the distant city below. The wind whispered around him, soft and continuous, carrying the quiet lessons of the mountain. It reminded him of the slow rhythm of practice, of patience, of restraint. He felt that the world beyond the mountain might move differently, faster, louder, but he did not allow himself to be hurried. When he reached the valley, the city of Thebes stretched ahead like a quiet puzzle of stone roofs, narrow streets, and soft smoke rising from chimneys. It was familiar, yet changed. The boy noticed details he had not before, the uneven stones of the street, the way sunlight fell on the walls, the faint scent of bread baking in the distance. Everything seemed alive, but none of it rushed him. He carried within him the slow, steady discipline of the mountain. Strength was present, deep and patient, but it remained silent, hidden beneath calm movements and measured steps. The first challenge came quietly, almost unnoticed. A large animal, a lion, far from its usual territory, stirred in the hills near the outskirts of the city. It moved into the area, attracted by the presence of smaller creatures, its steps careful but deliberate. No one had yet noticed it. The streets remained calm, people unaware of the subtle danger approaching. The boy saw it first, through the soft haze of morning light. He did not panic. He did not run. He paused. He observed. The lessons of the mountain returned to him, the careful observation, the patience, the restraint. He did not act rashly. He did not shout. He watched the movements of the lion, its rhythm, its energy. Each moment stretched slowly. He measured distance. He measured speed. He measured the subtle tension in the air. Then, with quiet certainty, he moved. Not with force, not with sudden action, but with control. He guided the animal gently, stepping into its path with calm presence, using patience rather than power. His movements were slow, deliberate, measured, like the river shaping stones over centuries. The lion paused, startled not by aggression but by the stillness of the boy. It reconsidered its path and moved away from the city, slipping back into the hills. The boy breathed quietly. He did not boast. He did not celebrate. He simply continued forward, walking calmly through the streets, allowing the rhythm of the day to guide him. People began to notice him now, not because of noise or spectacle, but because of presence. He moved differently from others, steady, controlled, aware of every step. This first trial was not loud, not violent, not dangerous in a storybook sense. Yet it marked a beginning. It was the first time his strength, tempered by years of patience and quiet practice, touched the wider world. He walked on. The city breathed around him, unaware of the careful balance unfolding in its streets. The sun climbed higher. Shadows shifted. And the boy, who had grown in solitude and discipline, learned that patience and awareness could confront even unseen challenges. Strength did not need to shout. Control did not require fear. The first trial passed quietly, like the gentle turning of a page, leaving no mark except in the awareness of the one who had faced it. And so the boy moved further into the world, ready to learn again, to face another challenge, and to grow with the same deliberate patience that had guided him through the long days on the mountain. Facing the unexpected, the boy moved carefully through the outskirts of Thebes. The city had its usual rhythm, voices murmuring, doors opening and closing, footsteps echoing on stone. Yet the boy did not hurry. He moved with awareness, each step deliberate, each breath measured, carrying the calm of the mountain within him. The air was warmer here, softer with the scent of earth, dust, and distant smoke. Shadows lengthened as the sun climbed higher, slowly painting the streets with light and shade. Everything seemed ordinary, yet his awareness noticed subtleties others overlooked, the way a branch swayed above a doorway, the rhythm of footsteps on cobblestones, the soft murmur of wind between rooftops. Then he encountered the unexpected. A group of children played along a narrow street. They ran carelessly, kicking dust and stones. One of them stumbled near the edge of a shallow stream, crying out in fear. The boy approached slowly, noticing the imbalance of energy. He did not rush to intervene, but he observed, aware of timing, aware of space. The child struggled, uncertain. The water moved gently, rippling against stones, reflecting light without hurry. The boy extended a hand, careful, deliberate. He did not pull abruptly. He waited until the moment was right, and then guided the child to safety with calm strength. The other children froze, watching. Not in fear, not in awe, simply curious. They had not seen strength applied without noise, without force, without show. The boy did not speak much. He did not explain. He simply returned to walking, allowing the street to resume its quiet rhythm. A few steps later, he noticed a different challenge. A cart, overloaded and wobbling, was being pushed by a man struggling under its weight. The boy approached carefully, feeling the subtle shift of balance beneath the wheels. He adjusted a stone in the street with a precise, measured push. The cart steadied. The man glanced at him briefly, confused but grateful. No words were exchanged beyond that small acknowledgement. Every challenge was different. None required aggression. None demanded display. Each required attention, timing, and patience. Each required calm. The boy understood something essential. Strength was not always shown through force. Control was more powerful than speed. Patience was more valuable than urgency. By late afternoon, he had moved through several small trials, unnoticed by most, yet significant to him. Each encounter taught him observation, restraint, and the gentle application of strength. Each left him more confident in his quiet abilities. The sun began to descend. Shadows lengthened. The air cooled. The boy paused on a small hill overlooking the city. The streets below continued their quiet bustle, unaware of the lessons unfolding in their midst. He felt the wind on his face, carrying the sense of the earth, the city, and the distant hills. He understood now that the world beyond the mountain moved with unpredictability. Challenges would appear in unexpected forms, sometimes small, sometimes large, but always requiring awareness, patience, and calm action. The first trials had been gentle, yet they were enough to remind him that strength alone was not enough. It must be paired with understanding, observation, and restraint. The boy watched the sun sink lower, painting the city in soft gold. The long shadows of buildings stretched slowly across the streets, quiet and unhurried. And he felt a quiet certainty growing within him. The world could be met without fear, without haste, without disturbance, because he had learned the rhythm of patience, the measure of restraint, and the quiet power of presence. The evening lesson and calm reflection. The sun dipped gently behind distant hills, casting the streets of Thebes in a soft, golden glow. Shadows stretched long and slow, blending with the pale light of evening. The city moved at a quieter pace now. Footsteps were softer, voices lowered. The bustle of the day had begun to settle like dust after a gentle wind. The boy paused at the edge of the city, standing on a small rise overlooking the rooftops and narrow lanes. He inhaled the warm air slowly, feeling it fill his chest and then leave, soft and unhurried. He noticed the sounds of life, the distant clatter of a cart, the murmur of conversation, the faint rustle of leaves. Everything carried a rhythm, a flow, a quiet order waiting to be understood. He thought of the trials of the day, the stumbling child, the unbalanced cart, the gentle guidance of the lion's path in the hills beyond. None had been loud, none had demanded heroism. And yet, each had been significant. He understood something essential. Strength was not measured by spectacle. It was measured by calm response, by observation, by restraint, by the quiet understanding that one could influence the world without disturbing its rhythm. The boy descended slowly into the streets, letting the warmth of evening wash over him. He moved with careful steps, aware of the balance of his own weight, aware of the space around him. No one noticed the depth of his attention. No one could guess the long years of patient practice behind his movements. He paused at a small fountain in the center of the square. The water moved gently over worn stones, spilling into the basin without hurry, without force. The boy knelt beside it, letting his hands touch the cool surface. He watched ripples form and fade, small waves spreading slowly, touching every edge of the basin in quiet succession. He saw a lesson in the water. Life, like the ripples, moves outward quietly. Strength, like the water, need not strike to be felt. Control, like the slow current, can shape the world without raising disturbance. The city around him continued its evening ritual. Lanterns were lit one by one, casting pale pools of light onto the streets. The air cooled as shadows deepened. The boy watched, letting the soft glow guide his reflection. He thought of Chiron, patient and deliberate, guiding him through the mountain days. He thought of the wind, the slopes, the stones. The slow repetition of careful practice. He understood now that those years had shaped him more profoundly than any loud trial could. Strength had grown quietly within him, tempered by observation, patience, and restraint. He did not yet know the full extent of it. He did not yet know the challenges that lay ahead. But he knew that when the time came, he would meet them with the calm, measured presence that the mountain and Chiron had instilled. As night approached, he sat beside the fountain, letting the soft sounds of the city and the flowing water fill his mind. The world moved around him, quiet and steady. No rush, no pressure, no urgency, only the slow unfolding of life, like the turning of a gentle page. He closed his eyes for a moment. He breathed in the cool evening air, exhaled slowly, and felt the steady rhythm of patience inside him. The trials of the day had been small, yet they had prepared him for larger challenges to come. And in the quiet reflection of the evening, he understood the essence of calm strength. It waits. It observes. It moves with care. It acts only when necessary. The boy stood finally, letting the last light of the sun fade behind the hills. The stars began to appear slowly, one by one, soft points of light in the darkening sky. He felt at peace. He felt ready. And with that quiet understanding, he walked back into the city, calm and steady, carrying the lessons of the mountain and the first trials of the wider world within him. The call to greater adventures, stirring beyond the familiar, the sun rose gently over Thebes, spilling light across rooftops and narrow streets. The city moved at its usual pace, yet the boy, and now more of a young man, walked with quiet attention, carrying the calm lessons of the mountain within him. Each step was measured. Each breath was deep and deliberate. Though he had faced small trials in the city, he felt a new stirring inside, a sense that the world beyond the familiar streets was waiting for him. Not with urgency, not with loud challenges, but quietly, softly, like the whisper of wind through distant hills. The mountains behind Thebes had taught him patience. Chiron had taught him restraint. The lessons of observation, repetition, and calm strength were deeply rooted within him now. And yet, there was a pull forward, a gentle nudge that he could not ignore. The morning air carried distant scents, the faint trace of forests and rivers, of stones and earth, of wild paths untraveled. He breathed in slowly, feeling the quiet anticipation settle in his chest. It was not excitement. It was awareness. It was readiness. He walked toward the edge of the city, where the familiar streets gave way to hills and paths that led outward. Each step was soft but determined. The quiet strength within him guided his pace. Along the way, he noticed the small rhythms of life he had not observed before, the gentle sway of a branch, the careful steps of a goat across a rocky slope, the faint hum of insects in the morning sun. Everything moved with its own pattern, and he understood that patience could shape even the unseen details of the world. As he left the familiar streets behind, the paths became rougher, steeper, and less certain. The air carried the scent of wildflowers and distant waters, of grass and stones untouched by city life. He walked slowly, observing the patterns of the land, feeling each movement of his body, aware of every shift in weight, every turn, every step. It was in this quiet awareness that the first sign of adventure appeared, not as danger, not as noise, not as chaos, but as subtle change in the rhythm of the world. A soft rustle in the underbrush caught his attention. A shadow shifted along the path ahead. The wind carried a faint, unfamiliar scent. The young man paused. He did not rush. He did not tighten his muscles in fear. He simply observed. He waited. The lesson of the mountain echoed in his mind. Strength is not in sudden action. Strength is in patience. Strength is in the calm, careful response to the unexpected. After a long moment, the movement revealed itself, a wild stag, gentle and alert, stepping lightly across the slope. It paused, noticing him. He remained still, letting the presence of the animal pass without disturbance. The stag moved onward, disappearing among the trees, leaving the young man with a quiet understanding. The wider world had its own rhythm. Challenges and encounters would come, but they did not demand haste. They demanded attention, awareness, and calm strength. He continued along the path, feeling the pull of places yet unseen. Rivers whispered ahead. Hills curved and rose beyond the horizon. Forests awaited, carrying quiet lessons in shadow and light. The young man understood that the first small trials of Thebes were only the beginning. A larger path lay ahead, full of unseen challenges, distant goals, and moments that would test not just his strength, but his patience, his restraint, and his calm presence. He walked forward slowly, letting the world unfold around him. The sun climbed higher, casting soft light across the hills. Birds called once, then fell silent. The wind shifted gently through the grass, and with every careful step, he felt himself ready for the greater adventures that awaited beyond the familiar, beyond the quiet streets of Thebes. The first signs whispers of change the underworld was quiet, yet it hummed with a rhythm that Persephone was learning to follow. The soft silver light of crystals reflected across the gently flowing rivers, creating tiny, flickering patterns on the cavern walls. The faint rustle of hidden leaves, the delicate ripple of water, and the soft shimmer of moss all carried a deliberate calm, a slow, measured pulse that moved through the shadows. Persephone walked carefully along the river bank, letting her fingers brush over smooth stones, tracing gentle patterns in the cool water. Hades followed beside her, his presence steady and calm, a comforting shadow that seemed to flow in harmony with the underworld itself. "You may begin to notice," he said softly, his voice blending with the gentle hum of water and wind, "that life here moves in cycles. Everything responds, slowly, deliberately, and with purpose. Your presence, your care, your awareness, they ripple through this world, shaping it in quiet, subtle ways." Persephone nodded slowly, letting his words sink into her thoughts, feeling the soft warmth of understanding in her chest. As she walked, she began to sense faint stirrings in the hidden life around her, tiny movements that had once gone unnoticed. A leaf quivered slightly as she passed, a small blossom bent gently toward her touch, and the faintest glimmer of color appeared in the moss along the river bank. It was subtle, delicate, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakable. The underworld was alive with quiet shifts, responding to her presence in ways she was only beginning to understand. Persephone knelt beside a softly glowing pool, trailing her fingers in the silvered water. The gentle ripples spread outward, touching the roots of tiny plants, moss, covered stones, and the delicate flowers that leaned toward her. She realized, with a quiet thrill, that these small movements mirrored larger patterns above, the cycles of the world outside. Though she was far below, in shadow and silence, her presence seemed to echo through hidden connections, stirring subtle changes that would ripple outward, eventually reaching the world of light. Hades watched her silently, his calm eyes reflecting the soft glow of the cavern. "You are beginning to feel it," he said softly. "The cycles are linked. Life above and below responds to one another. The slow shifts here in the underworld are mirrored in ways you may not immediately notice, but the connection exists. You are part of it now, Persephone, a gentle influence on the balance between shadow and light, life and rest." Persephone rose and continued along the river, noticing the way the shadows seemed to flow more gently around her, how the small creatures responded to her calm presence, and how the flowers and moss subtly shifted in acknowledgement of her attention. She felt a growing awareness of her role, a quiet understanding that even in darkness, her presence could shape the cycles of life, influencing the rhythm of the underworld and, in some delicate way, the world above. A soft breeze drifted through the cavern, carrying the faint scent of moss, earth, and hidden blossoms. Persephone inhaled deeply, letting the serenity of the underworld settle into her chest. She noticed tiny lights shimmering across the surface of the river, as if responding to her awareness. Each movement, each breath, each deliberate step seemed to resonate through the hidden corners of the realm, sending subtle ripples that echoed far beyond what she could immediately see. She stopped at the edge of a shadowed grove, where tiny flowers glimmered faintly in muted shades of silver and violet. Kneeling, she brushed her fingers gently across the petals and noticed the roots beneath pulse in response. A deep sense of wonder filled her. The underworld was not static, it breathed, it responded, it moved in quiet cycles. And she, moving slowly, observing carefully, had begun to influence it, becoming part of its rhythm, a subtle guiding presence in the hidden world. Hades placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, a gentle, grounding touch. "Even in darkness, life responds to care," he murmured. "And soon you will feel how the cycles here begin to reach outward, influencing the seasons above, reminding the world of the slow, deliberate rhythm that connects all life. Your presence matters more than you know, Persephone." Persephone stood beside the softly glowing river, taking a slow, deep breath. For the first time, she felt the delicate thread that linked the underworld to the world above, sensing the beginnings of a cycle that would bring change, subtly, quietly, in its own time. She felt a profound calm, a quiet anticipation, and a gentle awareness of her role in the slow unfolding of life, shadow, and light. The evening camp and reflection. As the sun began to sink behind distant hills, the young man found a small clearing beside a gentle stream. The air cooled slowly, carrying the scent of grass, damp earth, and pine. The quiet of evening settled over the land like a soft blanket. Shadows lengthened. The light softened. Everything moved at a measured pace, neither hurried nor restless. He set down a small bundle he had carried from Thebes, food wrapped carefully, a cloak to keep him warm, and a small water skin. He did not rush to make camp. He moved deliberately, adjusting each placement, arranging stones for a small fire later, and ensuring his resting space was comfortable yet unobtrusive. Once settled, he knelt by the stream, letting his hands touch the flowing water. It moved smoothly over the stones, unhurried, constant, quiet. He traced the gentle currents with his fingers, watching ripples spread slowly, fade slowly. A soft sense of calm settled over him, deeper than any he had known before. The events of the day drifted through his mind. The small trials, the lion in the hills, the stumbling child, the unsteady cart, the subtle obstacles along his path, each felt small in isolation, yet together they formed the first thread of understanding about the wider world. He realized that the world was not meant to be conquered in haste. It was meant to be observed, understood, approached with care. Even the challenges that had seemed minor required attention, patience, and calm strength. And each had been met with exactly that. The sun dipped lower. The first stars appeared, tiny points of silver in the softening sky. The young man sat quietly, feeling the day's rhythm settle within him, flowing through his muscles, his breath, his mind. He felt the slow pulse of patience, the steady weight of restraint, and the gentle presence of strength that did not need to shout to exist. He gathered a few small stones and arranged them into a circle for a fire. The flames, once kindled, flickered softly, casting warm, slow, moving shadows around him. He did not rush them. He did not hurry their dance. He simply observed, and in that calm observation, he thought of Chiron. The centaur's lessons were not about action alone. They were about awareness, about presence, about learning to move in harmony with the world, rather than forcing the world to conform to oneself. He ate slowly, tasting each morsel, savoring the quiet. He drank water from the stream, feeling the coolness move through him, grounding him, centering him. Every motion, every breath, every small thought was deliberate and gentle. When night fully fell, the young man lay on his cloak beneath a canopy of stars. The air was cool but not harsh. The sounds of the forest surrounded him, soft rustle of leaves, faint calls of distant animals, the gentle murmur of the stream. He felt at peace. The first steps into the wider world had been small. The first trials were gentle, but they had already begun shaping him in ways he could sense but not yet name. He closed his eyes, breathed in slowly, exhaled slowly, and let the quiet of the night settle deep within him. The world beyond Thebes was vast, unpredictable, and full of challenges yet unseen. But he had patience. He had awareness. He had calm strength. And in that quiet, soft night, he understood that every journey, no matter how long, began with careful steps, measured attention, and gentle presence. He slept slowly, deeply, peacefully, ready for the adventures that awaited him in the days to come. Meeting allies and unseen guidance, quiet encounters, the young man woke with the first light of dawn. The air was cool and soft, carrying the scent of pine, grass, and the faint warmth of sun touching the earth. The stream beside his camp murmured gently, as if speaking only to those who moved with quiet attention. He rose slowly, stretching his muscles with care, feeling each movement flow naturally from the patience he had carried from the mountains. He prepared for the day with gentle deliberation, gathering small bundles, checking his path, adjusting the cloak over his shoulders. There was no hurry, no need to rush. Each step, each breath, each motion was deliberate, measured, calm. As he walked through a soft forest path, sunlight filtered in pale beams, dappling the ground with shifting patterns of light and shadow. He noticed small things, a spider weaving a slow, careful web between branches, a bird balancing on a twig, leaves trembling slightly in the gentle breeze. Every movement carried meaning. Every detail demanded his attention. Then, unexpectedly, he sensed another presence, not loud, not sudden, but subtle, almost like a soft echo in the forest. He paused, breath steady, gaze gentle. There was someone else moving nearby, their rhythm different yet deliberate, calm and quiet. A figure emerged slowly from behind the trees. It was a traveler, someone older, quiet, moving with care. Their eyes met briefly, not in challenge, not in fear, but in gentle acknowledgement. The traveler spoke softly, their voice blending with the murmuring of the stream and the rustle of leaves. "You walk carefully," the traveler said. "Not in haste, not in noise. I see you carry patience in your steps." The young man nodded slightly, silently acknowledging the observation. He did not speak yet. He simply walked alongside the stranger, feeling the rhythm of their steps harmonize with his own. The traveler did not rush. They moved with deliberate awareness, guiding without imposing, teaching without commanding. Small lessons were exchanged: how to read the forest, how to notice subtle changes in the wind, how to sense the approach of creatures without startling them. The young man realized that guidance often comes in quiet forms, in moments barely noticed, in gestures that leave no mark except in the awareness of the one who observes. As the morning passed, they reached a small clearing where sunlight bathed the ground in soft warmth. The traveler paused, gesturing toward the distant hills. There are paths ahead that cannot be seen at first. There are allies to meet, challenges to sense, guidance that will come only when you are ready to observe it quietly. The young man nodded again, understanding without needing words. He felt the soft pull of anticipation, not excitement, not fear, but awareness of the subtle unfolding of what lay ahead. The traveler left as quietly as they had appeared, blending into the forest as if they had never been there, leaving behind only the lessons observed in silence. The young man continued along the path, steps slow, steady, deliberate. The forest seemed fuller now, not crowded, but alive with soft signs and gentle cues, all waiting for him to notice. And in that quiet rhythm of observation and patience, he understood something essential: the world would offer guidance and allies in subtle ways. He needed only to remain aware, calm, and attentive. Strength alone would not carry him. Presence and observation were equally important. He walked on, the light shifting slowly, shadows lengthening gently across the path. The forest whispered around him, carrying the promise of unseen friends, subtle guidance, and quiet challenges yet to come. And with every careful step, he felt the quiet certainty that he was ready, not for loud battles, not for sudden feats, but for the measured, deliberate journey that lay ahead. Lessons from subtle allies. The young man moved through the forest with a quiet awareness, carrying the memory of the traveler's presence like a soft guide on his steps. The trees swayed gently, their leaves whispering in the wind, creating a rhythm that matched his breathing. Every movement was deliberate, measured, calm, as if the forest itself reminded him to observe, not to rush. Along the path, he noticed small signs of life, an abandoned bird's nest tucked between branches, the delicate crawl of a beetle along the soft moss, the shimmer of sunlight on a spider's web. Each detail carried meaning, though subtle, almost imperceptible. He bent to examine the earth beneath his feet, noticing the tiny trails of insects, the smoothness of stones shaped by slow water, the faint scent of flowers opening in the morning light. In these quiet moments, he understood the lessons the traveler had left behind. Guidance often arrives in forms that do not demand attention. Allies sometimes appear not as loud champions, but as subtle influences, shaping paths, opening doors, and offering hints without fanfare. Later, he found himself beside a calm stream, water gliding over stones with gentle persistence. Here, he encountered another subtle guide, an old fox, its fur mottled with silver, eyes calm and watchful. It did not approach him, nor did it flee. It simply observed. Its gaze seemed to measure, to acknowledge, to teach without words. The young man sat quietly, letting the fox's presence sink into awareness. He noticed the careful way it moved, the patience in its steps, the subtlety with which it navigated the rocks and undergrowth. He felt that every action, every measured motion, carried a lesson in patience, in observation, and in calm control. Time passed gently. The sun climbed slowly overhead, filtering in shifting beams through the trees. The young man continued along the path, noting patterns in the forest, the way shadows shifted, the way birds communicated softly, the way the wind stirred without disturbance. All of it taught him that allies do not always announce themselves. Some offer lessons through presence, through subtle cues, through quiet modeling of behavior rather than explicit instruction. As the afternoon stretched on, he encountered other travelers, merchants moving slowly along forest paths, shepherds tending flocks in distant meadows, and even a small group of young warriors training at the edge of a clearing. None spoke loudly, none called for attention. Yet in their quiet presence, he learned much. He saw cooperation without competition, patience without pressure, and strength applied carefully, with awareness rather than haste. He understood something new. Every encounter, no matter how brief or seemingly insignificant, offered guidance. The world was full of unseen teachers, waiting for those who could notice, those who could move quietly, and those who could learn without needing recognition or applause. As evening approached, he found a soft hill overlooking the forest below. He sat and watched shadows lengthen, the gentle wind stirring the trees, and the distant path winding through the land. He felt the slow, deep satisfaction of understanding, of seeing that guidance can come in whispers, not shouts, in presence, not command, in observation, not imposition. The forest settled around him, soft and alive. The sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in soft amber and pale rose. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the quiet of the forest, the subtle lessons of allies, and the rhythm of his own calm strength fill him completely. And in this quiet reflection, he understood that the journey ahead would not be met with force alone. It would require patience, attention, and the ability to notice allies and guidance, even when it came softly, almost imperceptibly. He breathed slowly, exhaled slowly, and let the forest settle around him like a gentle embrace, preparing him for the days and challenges yet to come. Nightfall and the wisdom of stillness. As the sun sank slowly behind distant hills, the forest transformed. Shadows deepened, stretching across the ground in long, soft shapes. The air cooled, carrying the faint scent of pine, earth, and distant flowers. A gentle hush settled over the land, broken only by the quiet rustle of leaves and the slow murmur of the stream nearby. The young man chose a small clearing to rest for the night. He arranged his cloak on the soft grass, noticing the subtle rise and fall of the earth beneath him. The stones, the roots, and the gentle slope of the ground were all observed carefully, each detail acknowledged, each placement deliberate. He knelt by the stream and let his hands touch the water. It flowed slowly, circling around stones and fallen branches with quiet persistence. The movement reminded him of the lessons of the mountain: patience, calm, and steady guidance. Strength was not always shown in action. Sometimes it flowed quietly, shaping paths gently and without disturbance. As darkness approached, he noticed subtle signs of life around him. A firefly blinked once, then again, weaving its small light among the shadows. A distant owl called softly, its voice carried on the wind and fading gently into the forest. Even the trees seemed to breathe with him, moving softly with the rhythm of the night. He thought of the allies he had noticed that day, the quiet traveler, the silver fox, the subtle gestures of forest life. They had not announced themselves loudly. They had not demanded attention. Yet each had guided him, each had taught him, each had reminded him to remain aware, to move with patience, and to observe without haste. The young man felt a soft satisfaction settle over him. Not pride, not excitement, not fear, just a gentle contentment in understanding. The world was larger than he had imagined. It was full of subtle lessons, hidden guides, and quiet encounters. And the more he paid attention, the more the forest, the land, and its creatures revealed themselves to him. He lay down on his cloak, feeling the soft earth beneath him, listening to the whisper of leaves, the distant murmur of the stream, and the occasional rustle of small animals moving quietly through the night. He breathed in slowly, filling himself with the calm rhythm of the forest. He exhaled slowly, letting the day's awareness settle deeply into his mind and body. In the quiet of night, he understood something essential. Even in darkness, guidance exists. Even when allies are unseen, their lessons remain. Strength is most powerful when paired with patience, presence, and stillness. The stars appeared slowly above the trees, tiny points of silver in the deepening blue of night. He felt their quiet presence, distant yet steady, and knew that the journey ahead would require him to move with the same gentle awareness, step by careful step. As he drifted towards sleep, he carried the forest's wisdom within him. Observe. Wait. Move deliberately. Notice allies, guidance, and subtle signs, even when they are quiet. And in this soft, patient understanding, he slept slowly, deeply, and peacefully, ready for the new day, ready for the unfolding journey, ready for the adventures that would come not with noise, but with calm, measured presence. The first true challenge beyond Thebes, whispers of danger dawn, arrived softly over the distant hills, painting the forest with pale golden light. The young man rose slowly, stretching his limbs with care, feeling the calm strength that had grown through years on the mountain and quiet lessons in the forest. He moved deliberately, every step measured, every breath steady, fully aware of the gentle rhythm of life around him. The path ahead wound through dense trees and underbrush, narrow and uneven, with stones hidden beneath soft moss. The air carried the scent of damp earth and fresh leaves. Birdsong drifted in the distance, faint and intermittent, while the wind whispered through branches, soft and persistent. Everything spoke quietly, asking him to move with awareness rather than haste. As he walked, he noticed subtle signs that the forest itself was changing. Broken twigs, disturbed soil, and faint tracks suggested something had passed through recently. His muscles tensed slightly, but only in preparation, not fear. He paused, breathing slowly, letting calm guide his observations. A rustle in the bushes ahead caught his attention. The young man stopped. He did not rush forward. He did not raise his voice. He simply watched. A large boar stepped into the path, its eyes alert, muscles coiled like springs, tusks gleaming in the morning light. It was strong and wild, an unexpected challenge far beyond the small trials he had faced near Thebes. Yet the young man remembered the lessons of patience, of observation, of controlled strength. He took a slow breath. He adjusted his stance deliberately, keeping weight balanced, movements measured. The boar pawed the ground, sniffing, tense but not yet aggressive. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting. The young man noticed subtle cues, the shifting of the boar's ears, the flex of its legs, the slight twitch of its snout. He knew that rash action could provoke it, but careful presence might allow him to move past safely. He began to step slowly backward, 1 foot at a time, keeping the boar within his line of sight without threatening it. The forest taught him again that day, control does not always mean force. Patience can be more powerful than speed. Observation can shape outcomes more effectively than strength alone. As he moved, he noticed another detail, a small fallen branch forming a natural barrier. He adjusted it carefully, using it to subtly guide the boar's movement away from the path. The boar hesitated, sniffed, and then moved past, following the natural curve of the land, unharmed and unprovoked. The young man exhaled slowly, feeling a deep satisfaction, not in victory, but in awareness. The first true challenge of the wider world had appeared quietly, without fanfare, yet it tested his patience, observation, and careful action more than any trial in Thebes. He continued along the forest path, moving slowly and deliberately. The air remained cool and still. Shadows lengthened as the sun climbed higher, filtering through the canopy in gentle beams. The young man felt the quiet rhythm of his own body, steady and controlled, flowing in harmony with the natural world around him. And in this first real test beyond the city, he learned an essential truth: strength is most powerful when paired with calm awareness. Challenges are best met not with haste, but with careful, deliberate action. The world may present danger, yet patience and observation can guide one safely through it. Step by measured step, he continued deeper into the forest, aware that larger challenges awaited, yet confident in the quiet strength that had been growing within him for years. The first true test of the journey had passed not with noise or chaos, but with calm presence and steady awareness. The trial of the river crossing, the forest path gradually opened onto a gentle valley, where the soft murmur of water reached the young man's ears. A wide river stretched across the land, moving steadily, its surface glimmering in the morning sun. The water flowed with quiet strength, carrying branches and leaves downstream, persistent yet calm. The young man approached slowly, observing every ripple, every stone, and every curve of the current. He knelt at the river bank, letting his fingers trail in the cool water. It flowed over his hands smoothly, relentless yet gentle, reminding him that strength often moves quietly, shaping its path with patience rather than haste. He studied the river carefully. The water was not violent, but it was wide enough to test his balance and judgment. Nearby, stones formed a natural stepping path, though uneven and slippery with moss. Each stone seemed placed by time itself, a subtle puzzle waiting to be understood. The young man paused, breathing slowly. He weighed each step carefully in his mind before committing. He placed his foot gently on the first stone. It held firm. He moved deliberately to the next, feeling the slight shift beneath his weight. The current brushed against his ankles, soft but insistent, reminding him to remain steady. Step by step, he crossed further, eyes alert, hands slightly extended for balance, movements controlled and deliberate. Midway, a larger stone wobbled slightly under his weight. He did not panic. He stopped. He shifted his balance slowly, adjusting foot placement and posture, letting awareness guide him rather than fear. The stone settled beneath him. He exhaled quietly, continuing forward. Along the river, he noticed small creatures, frogs leaping gently, fish gliding beneath the surface, dragonflies skimming the water. They moved with ease, guided by the same patience and rhythm he was learning to embody. He realized that the river itself was a teacher. Strength is not about rushing. It is about steady, deliberate motion. Resilience comes from awareness and balance, not force. As he reached the final stones near the opposite bank, the current intensified slightly, nudging at the edges of his feet. He slowed further, feeling the flow in each movement, letting the rhythm of the water guide his careful steps. Finally, he reached the bank safely, stepping onto soft grass with a quiet sense of accomplishment. No triumphal shout, no celebration, only the deep satisfaction of having moved with awareness, patience, and controlled strength. He paused on the river bank, looking back at the flowing water. The river had not yielded, it had not been tamed. He had merely moved with it, respecting its strength and rhythm. And in this quiet understanding, he realized that true challenges do not always require force. They demand presence, careful observation, and steady courage. The young man continued along the path that wound into the forest beyond the river. The trees whispered in the wind, sunlight danced across the leaves, and the soft murmur of the water lingered in his mind. He felt a gentle confidence growing within him, knowing that he could meet whatever challenges awaited with calm, deliberate action. The first true test of the wider world had been faced. It had arrived not with loud threat, but with subtle danger, teaching him lessons in balance, patience, and quiet strength that would remain with him forever. The forest welcomed him onward, the path winding deeper, quieter, and full of subtle hints for the journey yet to come. And with each slow step, he felt more ready for the challenges that lay beyond the next curve, beyond the next hill, beyond the unseen turns of the world. Evening reflection by the river, the sun began its slow descent, painting the forest and river with gentle shades of gold and amber. The young man settled on the soft grass of the river bank, letting the quiet strength of the flowing water fill his mind. The current moved steadily, persistent yet calm, reflecting the lessons he had learned in the mountains and on the path beyond Thebes. He watched the sunlight glint on ripples, small waves dancing around stones. Each ripple reminded him that movement does not need force to leave an impact. Even subtle, quiet motion can shape the course of the world around it. The river was steady, patient, powerful in its persistence, a quiet teacher of balance and calm determination. He thought back on the day's trial, the careful crossing, the shifting stones, the gentle push of the current. No one else had witnessed it. There had been no fanfare, no clamor of victory. Yet within him, a deep understanding had settled, an awareness of strength guided by patience, of courage tempered by careful observation. The forest around him softened as evening approached. Leaves rustled gently in the breeze, small creatures moved quietly through the undergrowth, and the distant call of a bird echoed faintly. The young man breathed slowly, matching his rhythm to the natural world. In this calm, measured presence, he felt the first true lessons of the wider world sink deeply into his being. He knelt to touch the water, letting his hands trail through the cool current. It flowed around him effortlessly, carrying small leaves and twigs downstream, persistent yet gentle. He realized that just as the river shaped its path through time, his patience, awareness, and calm strength would shape his journey through the world. The sky shifted to soft twilight. Stars began to appear, faint points of light in the deepening blue. The young man lay back on the grass, listening to the gentle murmur of the river, feeling the slow pulse of the earth beneath him, letting the forest embrace him in quiet stillness. He reflected on the subtle lessons of the day, that challenges are not always loud. That strength is most effective when paired with calm observation. That presence and patience can guide one safely through even the most unpredictable trials. He felt the quiet presence of unseen allies, the forest, the river, the creatures, even the distant guidance of those he had met along the path. They had not intervened with force. They had guided with subtlety, teaching without words, offering lessons through existence itself. The young man closed his eyes. He breathed in the cool evening air slowly, filling himself with the calm rhythm of the world. He exhaled, releasing tension, releasing haste, releasing the need for recognition. He allowed himself to sink into quiet reflection, into gentle presence, into the steady awareness that strength is most true when it is patient and deliberate. Night settled fully over the river and forest, soft and still. The young man drifted into sleep under the stars, carrying the lessons of the first true challenge with him. He was ready for tomorrow's journey, knowing that every step, every observation, and every act of careful attention would continue to shape him, preparing him for the adventures that lay ahead. Crossing into unknown lands, the quiet beginning of a new path, the morning arrived softly over the forest, painting the trees in pale gold and silver light. The young man stirred, stretching slowly, aware of the steady rhythm of his body and the gentle pulse of the land beneath his feet. The river from the previous day murmured quietly nearby, its persistent flow a subtle reminder of the lessons he had learned: patience, balance, and calm strength. He packed his small bundle carefully, moving deliberately, mindful of each motion. Nothing was rushed, nothing wasted, nothing overlooked. Every step, every adjustment, every breath was made with awareness, carrying the quiet confidence that comes from repeated practice and reflection. The path ahead led beyond the familiar forest, into lands he had never seen. Rolling hills stretched in soft, undulating waves, dotted with scattered trees and patches of tall grass swaying gently in the morning breeze. The sun warmed the air softly, revealing the distant outline of mountains that seemed to shimmer through the haze. Everything was new, yet nothing demanded haste. He walked slowly, feeling the gentle incline beneath his feet, listening to the soft symphony of birdsong, rustling leaves, and the occasional distant call of a grazing animal. Every sound, every sight, every subtle movement of wind and shadow was absorbed into his awareness. The world was vast, full of unknowns, yet he did not feel fear. He felt readiness. He felt calm. He felt patience. As he moved into the open fields beyond the forest, he noticed the subtle signs of life all around. A deer paused at the edge of a grove, lifting its head and watching him with gentle curiosity. A soft breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and damp earth, weaving through his hair and clothing. Even the stones beneath his feet seemed to guide his careful steps, revealing subtle dips and rises in the terrain with every measured motion. The young man paused occasionally, kneeling beside a patch of wildflowers or tracing a small animal's tracks in the soft soil. He did not hurry. He did not seek spectacle. He simply moved with awareness, letting the world reveal its patterns and lessons without forcing them. And then, in the quiet rhythm of the morning, he sensed it, a subtle shift in the land, almost imperceptible, like a whisper carried on the breeze. The hills ahead seemed to beckon him, curves and shadows inviting him forward, suggesting challenges yet unseen. He did not rush. He did not tense. He simply observed, breathing slowly, letting the awareness settle deep within him. The journey into unknown lands had begun. No loud announcement. No dramatic obstacles. Just soft, measured steps into a world that was waiting patiently for him to notice its lessons. He understood, in the gentle unfolding of this morning, that the true journey was not only about reaching new places, but about moving with calm presence, observing, learning, and letting strength grow quietly, without haste, without noise, without unnecessary display. And with that understanding, he stepped forward into the soft, rolling hills, the distant mountains shimmering in gentle light, the world stretching out before him with quiet promise, and a journey of discovery waiting patiently, step by deliberate step. Signs of the hidden paths. The young man moved carefully through the soft hills, letting each step settle lightly on the earth beneath him. The grass bent gently beneath his feet, swaying back into place as if acknowledging his presence. The morning sun had climbed higher now, spilling warm light across the valley and tracing golden edges along the distant ridges. The world seemed both vast and intimate, inviting yet patient, as though it waited quietly for him to notice its subtle rhythms. Everywhere he looked, small signs appeared along the path. A patch of moss on a stone suggested the direction water flowed in the recent rains. A faint indentation in the soil marked where an animal had passed, silent and careful. A broken branch hinted at the weight of someone, or something, that had moved through the land before him. He noticed all of these things slowly, deliberately, letting them unfold like a whispered story of the hills. He paused beside a small stream that trickled over smooth stones, its water clear and cool. He knelt, letting the flow run over his hands, feeling its steady rhythm. It was not a torrent. It did not demand attention through noise or sudden force. And yet, it carried its own quiet lessons, the persistence of movement, the patience of gradual shaping, the gentle, steady way strength can exist without show. The young man reflected on the first real challenge he had faced, the boar, the river crossing, and he understood that these subtle signs were part of the same thread. Life in the unknown lands was full of hidden cues, quiet hints, and gentle warnings, waiting for those who moved slowly enough to see them. The hills were not threatening. They were teaching. Every turn of the path, every rustle in the grass, every distant bird call was a note in the soft song of guidance. As he continued, he noticed a small trail weaving between patches of wildflowers. It was barely visible, almost hidden beneath the taller grass. The path curved slightly, leading toward a cluster of trees in the distance. He did not rush. He approached it slowly, stepping carefully over roots and stones, feeling the slight resistance of the earth beneath his feet. Each motion was deliberate and calm. Along the trail, he found more subtle hints. A stone balanced carefully on the edge of a root, as if marking the safest spot to step. A faint scratch in the bark of a tree, almost erased by time, pointed toward a bend in the path. A soft rustle of leaves, carried by a gentle wind, suggested movement ahead, an unseen presence, quiet but watchful. The young man observed all of this with the same calm attention he had learned from Chiron and from the quiet encounters in the forest. He did not see these signs as obstacles or threats. He saw them as guidance. He did not force the path. He let it unfold, step by step, each observation leading naturally to the next, each careful choice of motion forming part of the slow, steady rhythm of the journey. By midday, he had reached a small clearing surrounded by low hills, the sunlight warm but soft. The wind stirred gently, moving through the tall grass and wildflowers, carrying faint scents of earth and distant forests. He paused to breathe deeply, letting the calm flow into his body. He felt his heart beat slow, his muscles release tension, his mind settle into quiet clarity. And then he noticed it, a faint trail diverging from the main path, almost invisible unless one looked carefully. It led toward a thicker forest in the distance, the trees clustered closely, shadows stretching long across the ground. The trail was subtle. It required careful attention to follow. But the young man sensed that it was the correct direction for the next stage of his journey. He moved slowly onto the hidden path, step by deliberate step. Each stone, each root, each gentle incline required mindfulness, yet the rhythm of the land and his body were in harmony. He adjusted his weight softly, feeling the ground shift beneath him, allowing the earth to guide him rather than forcing his own movement. The path led him deeper into the forest, where shadows danced softly across the ground, dappled by sunlight filtering through leaves. The sounds of the hills faded behind him, replaced by the gentle chorus of the forest, birds singing softly, insects buzzing quietly, leaves rustling in the breeze. He noticed subtle signs of previous travelers, a small stick placed across a tiny stream to serve as a bridge, a patch of flattened grass suggesting a safe resting place, a faint trail of footprints barely visible. The young man understood, in that slow, immersive moment, that every hidden path, every quiet trail, carried wisdom. The world provided hints, lessons, and subtle guidance to those who moved with patience and attention. The unknown lands were not meant to overwhelm him. They were meant to teach him, to expand his awareness, to refine his calm, to cultivate the quiet strength that would prepare him for evening rest and the whispering woods. The sun dipped slowly toward the horizon, painting the sky with soft strokes of amber and rose. The young man found a small clearing in the heart of the forest, where the trees opened just enough to allow the evening light to spill gently onto the earth. He knelt on the soft grass, feeling the cool, steady pulse of the ground beneath him, and settled his small bundle carefully beside him. Every motion was slow and deliberate, a quiet conversation with the land that cradled him. He took a deep, measured breath, letting the calm of the forest fill him. The trees swayed gently with the wind, their leaves whispering in soft patterns, a natural symphony that invited stillness. Even the distant murmur of a hidden stream seemed to encourage patience, persistence, and quiet awareness. He exhaled slowly, letting the tension of the day release with the warm, fading light. The forest around him was alive with subtle movements. Small creatures emerged cautiously from their daytime hiding places, squirrels hopping softly from branch to branch, a rabbit moving through the underbrush, the occasional owl gliding silently above. He observed without disturbance, noticing the careful balance of life here, how every movement was intentional yet gentle. This was a world that demanded awareness, yet rewarded calm presence. As night approached, the young man felt the subtle weight of the day's journey. The hidden paths, the gentle hills, and the quiet lessons along the forest trail had required constant attention. He had moved slowly, deliberately, yet the effort had been satisfying rather than exhausting. It was the satisfaction of being fully present, of meeting challenges with patience and measured strength. He knelt beside a soft patch of moss near a tree, letting his fingers trace the gentle textures. Each detail of the forest, from the curve of a leaf to the delicate balance of a stone, seemed to speak to him in whispers. It reminded him of the subtle guidance he had received earlier in the journey, lessons from quiet travelers, gentle animals, and the rhythms of the land itself. Even in the darkness yet to come, these lessons would continue to guide him. As twilight deepened, he gathered a few small stones and created a simple circle for a fire, careful not to disturb the natural surroundings. He struck a spark gently, coaxing the flames to life slowly, allowing them to spread warmth without haste. The fire flickered softly, casting shadows that danced along the trunks of the trees, creating a serene, protective cocoon around him. Sitting beside the fire, he reflected on the day's journey. The hidden paths had not been obvious. They had required observation, careful thought, and gentle courage to follow. Yet every step along them had revealed the quiet wisdom of the forest, the importance of awareness, patience, and subtle guidance. He felt the presence of unseen allies, the forest itself, the creatures that moved through it, the gentle signs that marked the path. They had not spoken in words, nor had they demanded attention. Yet their guidance had been present, soft and steady, shaping his journey without force or hurry. The young man ate slowly, savoring the few morsels of food he carried. Each bite was deliberate, each motion intentional. He drank water from a nearby stream, feeling its coolness settle through him, grounding him, connecting him to the land and its quiet lessons. As the night fully fell, the stars appeared, delicate and distant in the darkening sky. The forest embraced him in stillness, each sound, each movement, each whispering leaf teaching patience and awareness. He lay on his cloak, hands resting lightly on his chest, breathing deeply, letting the rhythm of the forest flow through him. The trials of the hidden paths, the river, and the hills had taught him that challenges are not always loud, and that strength is most enduring when paired with calm observation. In this moment of stillness, he felt a deep connection to the world around him. He understood that the journey was not merely through physical lands, but through awareness itself. Every step, every choice, every quiet observation shaped him as much as the terrain beneath his feet. He closed his eyes, letting the whispers of the forest carry him slowly into sleep. The gentle rhythm of wind, water, and distant creatures lulled him, and he drifted, fully present yet letting go, resting in the quiet certainty that the journey ahead would continue to teach him, guide him, and shape him, step by careful, deliberate step. The forest held him softly, patiently, as night deepened, carrying the promise of new discoveries with the dawn yet to come. And in that gentle embrace, he slept, calm, slow, and ready for the adventures of the unknown lands that awaited him. The first flicker, the call of the eternal flame, the city of Rome lay in the soft hush of early dawn. Even the cobblestone streets, usually busy with merchants and travelers, seemed to breathe quietly under the first gentle light. A thin veil of mist lingered over the Tiber River, curling around the edges of bridges and reflecting the pale amber of the waking sun. It was a morning where everything felt deliberate, measured, and calm, as though the city itself had paused to take a deep breath. Among the quiet streets walked a young seeker, moving slowly, observing the world with gentle attention. He noticed the way the morning light fell softly upon the stone walls of houses, how the dew glistened on small patches of grass between the cobblestones, and the faint sounds of birds greeting the new day. Each detail was a whisper, a subtle lesson in patience and presence, urging him to move carefully and to notice the world around him. His journey had no urgency. He did not rush toward some loud goal, nor did he carry heavy burdens of expectation. He walked slowly, letting his senses attune to the rhythm of the city, the soft breeze, and the subtle hum of life awakening around him. And yet, in the quiet corners of his mind, a gentle curiosity had begun to stir, a quiet beckoning toward a place he had never seen, yet somehow always known. It began as a small flicker in the distance, barely visible beyond the rising buildings. A faint, golden glow, steady and warm, like the heartbeat of the city itself. It was a light that called softly, without urgency, drawing the seeker's gaze with its quiet insistence. He paused for a moment, letting the calm warmth of the glow settle within him, breathing in its gentle presence. The glow came from the temple of Vesta, the sacred home of the eternal flame. For the hidden wonders, gentle discoveries, the underworld stretched before Persephone like a quiet, shadowed world full of slow, deliberate mysteries. The soft silver light of the crystals shimmered across the gently flowing rivers, casting delicate patterns on the cavern walls. Every ripple of water, every swaying branch, and every flicker of shadow seemed to carry a secret story, moving with patience and purpose. Persephone walked carefully along the riverbank, her footsteps soft on the stone floor, letting her senses absorb the calm rhythm that surrounded her. Hades followed beside her, silent and steady, a quiet presence that flowed like a shadow. "The deeper you go," he said softly, "the more you will notice the hidden life here. Some things are subtle, some almost invisible, but all have purpose. The underworld is full of secrets, waiting for patience, attention, and care to reveal them." Persephone nodded slowly, feeling a gentle thrill at the thought of uncovering the quiet wonders hidden in this shadowed realm. As she moved along the river, she noticed tiny creatures darting in and out of the shadows, delicate beings with translucent wings that caught the faint crystal light, moving gracefully with the flow of air currents. They did not fear her. Instead, they seemed to respond to her calm presence, continuing their slow, purposeful movements while occasionally brushing closer to feel the soft warmth she brought. Persephone knelt, watching their delicate dances, marveling at how life, even in the shadows, could move in quiet harmony. Hades guided her to a small grove where the soft glow of moss illuminated hidden corners. Tiny flowers had begun to bloom in muted shades of violet, silver, and pale green, their petals swaying gently as if in rhythm with the river. Persephone knelt among them, brushing her fingers lightly over the blossoms, and felt a subtle pulse of life respond beneath her touch. It was as if the plants themselves were acknowledging her presence, opening gradually to share their quiet beauty. A gentle breeze drifted through the cavern, carrying the faint scent of earth, water, and blossoms that only revealed themselves to patient eyes. Persephone inhaled slowly, letting the calm settle in her chest. She felt the underworld's rhythm deepening around her, the sway of branches, the soft hum of water, the quiet scuttle of tiny creatures, all moving in harmony with her careful steps and attentive presence. She walked toward a shadowed archway, where the faint light of distant crystals highlighted a hidden garden. The ground was soft beneath her feet, and delicate roots stretched outward like unseen hands reaching for attention. Persephone knelt and traced the roots with her fingers, noticing that even the smallest touches seemed to stir gentle responses, petals quivering, leaves swaying, water reflecting her presence in shimmering patterns. Each subtle movement made her aware of her quiet influence, and she felt a deep sense of connection with this hidden world. Hades remained nearby, his calm presence encouraging her to explore at her own pace. "See how even small awareness can awaken hidden magic," he said softly. "Nothing here moves without reason, but attention and care reveal the life that hides in shadow. Your presence matters, Persephone. You are part of the cycles now, and they respond to you." Persephone rose and walked along the soft riverbank, noticing the gentle interplay of light, shadow, and life. Each creature, each plant, each ripple seemed to respond to her observation, moving with a quiet, deliberate grace. She understood that the underworld was full of subtle wonders, patterns that required patience and care to perceive. And with each step, she felt herself becoming not only an observer but a participant, her presence gently guiding the slow unfolding of life in this secret, shadowed world. By the time she paused beside a softly glowing river, Persephone felt a profound calm in her chest. The underworld, once unfamiliar and silent, now seemed alive with quiet magic, delicate rhythms, and patient life. And she, moving slowly, observing carefully, had become part of this gentle flow, beginning to understand the intricate, subtle ways in which her presence touched and shaped the world around her. Nightfall and the triumph of awareness. The sun sank slowly behind the distant hills, painting the valley in soft shades of amber and deepening shadow. The young man paused on the gentle slope where the hidden path led him, feeling the cool air settle around him and the soft pulse of the earth beneath his feet. The valley, quiet and vast, seemed to breathe with him, carrying the lessons of the day in its subtle whispers. He knelt in the damp grass, running his fingers over the moss and stones. Each texture told a story, each shadow held a gentle clue, each sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant trickle of the stream, was part of the trial he had faced. He understood now that the valley's challenge had never been about force or loud confrontation. It had been about awareness, patience, and deliberate presence. The shadows deepened as evening approached, curling gently around the small hills and the edges of the forest. The young man observed carefully, noting every subtle shift, the way the mist curled along the grass, the soft movement of small creatures, the faint tracks of animals that had passed through earlier. Everything was part of the living lesson, guiding him through the hidden intricacies of the valley. He reflected on the day's journey through the shadowed paths, the careful crossing of streams, and the subtle markers that had directed him along the way. Each obstacle had been minor when seen alone, yet together they formed a test of calm perception. He realized that strength alone would have been insufficient. Rushing, forcing, or ignoring the gentle cues of the land could have led him astray. It was the steady, deliberate observation, the quiet use of his mind and senses, that had allowed him to navigate the valley successfully. As twilight deepened, he gathered a few soft branches to create a small, controlled fire. The flames flickered softly, casting gentle shadows on the surrounding grass and trees. He did not seek to conquer the night, nor to illuminate every corner of the valley. He simply allowed the fire to provide warmth and a small pool of light, merging with the quiet rhythm of the forest and the soft hush of the valley. Sitting beside the fire, he reflected further on the subtle triumph of awareness. The first great trial had not been an enemy to defeat, nor a mountain to climb with brute strength. It had been a lesson in presence, patience, and careful attention. By moving deliberately, observing fully, and responding with calm thoughtfulness, he had mastered the trial, not by overpowering it, but by understanding it. The forest around him seemed to acknowledge this quiet triumph. Leaves whispered softly in the breeze, birds called faintly from distant branches, and the stream murmured its steady, enduring song. Even the shadows seemed to settle into a gentle pattern, as if the valley itself had softened in approval. The young man leaned back against a gentle rise in the land, closing his eyes briefly. He felt the steady rhythm of his own breathing, the warmth of the fire, and the soft pulse of the earth beneath him. He let his awareness settle deeply, letting the lessons of the day imprint upon him with quiet clarity. He understood that the path ahead would continue to present challenges, not always loud, not always dramatic, but always deliberate, subtle, and instructive. Each trial would require the same measured attention, the same calm courage, and the same careful observation he had used to navigate the valley. And each lesson would strengthen him, not through force, but through understanding. As darkness fully settled over the valley, the stars began to appear, tiny points of light shimmering above the shadowed hills. The young man lay back on the soft grass, feeling the gentle embrace of the night around him. He breathed slowly, letting his mind relax into the rhythm of the forest, the valley, and the quiet triumph of awareness that had carried him through his first great trial. The night was calm, soft, and full of subtle lessons, the valley a gentle reminder that the journey was as much inward as outward. And in that quiet stillness, the young man drifted into sleep, slowly, deeply, and peacefully, carrying the wisdom of the valley within him and the readiness for the challenges yet to come. The world of Greek myths, where the legendary Hercules takes slow, gentle steps through forests, rivers, and hidden valleys. This isn't a story of loud battles, but of quiet courage, subtle lessons, and peaceful adventures that soothe your mind and guide you into deep relaxation. Let the calm rhythm of his journey carry you softly into sleep, one gentle step at a time. In a time long ago, when the world was alive with gods, heroes, and gentle mysteries, there lived a young man whose strength was whispered about even before he understood it himself. His name was Hercules, though in the quiet of the mountains, rivers, and forests, he was simply a traveler learning to move through the world with care, patience, and presence. This is not a story of loud battles or boisterous triumphs. It is a story of slow, measured steps into the unknown, of gentle lessons from nature, and of quiet courage that grows when one observes carefully and moves deliberately. It is a story meant to guide you, softly, into calm reflection and deep relaxation. Through valleys, forests, rivers, and shadowed paths, we will walk alongside Hercules, feeling the rhythm of the earth beneath our feet, listening to the whispers of the wind, and noticing the subtle guidance of the world around us. As you listen, allow yourself to settle comfortably, letting each word flow over you like a gentle stream. Feel the steady pulse of the land, the quiet lessons of the hidden paths, and the calm strength that grows in patience and awareness. With each chapter, each step, each quiet moment, let your mind release tension, your body relax, and your spirit settle into the serene rhythm of this ancient journey. And so, softly, gently, we begin. We begin the story of Hercules, not as a loud, heroic tale, but as a slow, immersive journey through unknown lands, quiet trials, and the subtle triumphs of awareness and courage. Step lightly, breathe deeply, and move calmly with him into the first chapter of this gentle, timeless adventure.